Welcome to Orthodontic Smiles, the podcast designed for all dentists and their staffs who practice orthodontics. This podcast is brought to you by the American Orthodontic Society. With innovation, quality, patient comfort, and efficiency as their goal, Henry Schein Orthodontics has once again achieved a new and exciting breakthrough in aligner therapy, introducing a clearly different aligner system, a comprehensive aesthetic solution for adults and teens. The SLX Clear Aligner System is uniquely clear, provides an excellent fit, and offers numerous treatment and workflow efficiencies. With over 50,000 patients treated with this innovative aligner technology, doctors and patients can be confident in the SLX aligner performance for a full range of minor, moderate, and comprehensive treatments. Jumpstart your SLX cases with the Carrier Motion Appliance to provide the most efficient and aesthetic treatment solution available. For more information, contact your Henry Schein representative or email aligners@henryschein.com. Orthodontic Smiles podcast welcomes one of the most influential congressmen in Washington, Dr. Paul Gosar. He happens to be, believe it or not, he's a dentist, and one of the very few. And we were very lucky to have him speak as a key speaker at the American Orthodontic Society annual meeting this year in September. And what a great speech he gave. And I asked him, and he most graciously accepted the opportunity to be on Orthodontic Smiles podcast. So thank you so much, Congressman. It's such a pleasure to have you on our podcast. It goes out to so many dentists out there, so I'm sure they'll be very anxious to hear some of the things you have to say.
Ed, thanks for having me on.
Wonderful. Let's get started here. You're a member of the Freedom Caucus. Now, that's about 36 congressmen who are pretty darn influential in Congress right now, because you hold down the fort, and you've voted against the ACA over 57 times. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, that one vote messed up, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Ed, I didn't care for my health care before, and I didn't care for it with the ACA. I think we're better than that. You know, when you hear the calls for Medicare for all, why are we settling for a failing program? Aren't we better than that? And shouldn't we devise something that puts a patient-centered, patient-focused, and patient-friendly empowerment to the patient? We as doctors understand that very, very well. And so my plan is to break everybody down to the lowest common denominators, and the ACA did not do that. It rewarded winners, and the three big winners in the ACA were the insurance companies, big hospitals, and the pharmaceuticals. You know, the profits were out of the earth because they were guaranteed. What I'm proposing is the first step is to take away the Sherman-Clayton antitrust exemption that the medical insurance industry actually has. We don't have, as doctors, that right, and if nobody else has it, nobody can have it. What this truly gets back down to is the insurance companies coming to the table in a competition mode where they're putting the patient first, they're putting the doctor first, they're rewarding that relationship and incentivizing new and exciting models. That's what I'm talking about. And then empowering people with their own money to invest in themselves through HSAs. liberate them, allow them, if they don't use it, don't lose it. It builds like a 401k. As long as you use it for health care, who cares? And if I die...
Where does Congress stand right now? Where are we in this whole process? Now, this is your plan with the HSAs. I'm assuming that other congressmen have other plans, but where do we stand as a union ready to make a vote on what we're going to do?
Well, we've got ideas like these on both sides of the aisle. McCarran-Ferguson repeal has been introduced both in the Senate and the House, trying to coordinate it. And it's a winner, Ed. It's a freebie. This is, rewarding the American people with trust as a series of promises kept. Deliver on promises. Show them that you're getting to a point where you're taking down the rhetoric and putting down proposals. And you have to include everybody at the table so that they're incentivized to put the patient first. The problem is now we're talking about impeachment. Now we're talking about this scandal versus that scandal, one system of justice, and no one wants to put down something on paper. I've stressed over and over to the majority leader in the Senate. Why don't you go first?
Exactly.
Push it out. Have the conversation. Because the American people will gravitate to it. They want to be included in the plan. And I think it's a winning message. But right now, you can't teach Washington a new trick. They're still barking up the tree.
Yeah, and what concerns me as a practitioner, I'm a pediatric dentist, as you know. And what concerns me and many of us in pediatric dentistry is that there's 425,000 children that don't have health care that left the insured rolls this year. And there's 4.3 million children that are uninsured. It is out here in the real world, we're seeing patients leave us. There's 800,000 less children even on the Medicaid rolls. So where are they going? They're not getting treated. If they can't get it through Medicaid and they can't get it through their own insurance, where are they going?
Well, that's where we have to think outside the box. And that's, instead of victimizing patients, we need to empower patients. Ed, you know it as well as I do that you can only meet a patient halfway. The patient has to meet you halfway. It's a contract. And people want choice. They want to be empowered. There was a program during the Obama administration through 2009 and 2010 where they took WIC women, usually a single mom with 2.3 children at the time on average. And instead of forcing them to go to a Medicaid provider, what they gave them was a credit card with X amount of dollars on it. And they said, hey, we want you to be empowered. We want you to get your kids seen. This is how much money you got on the card. You can only use it for health care. Use it wisely. Well, interesting thing happened. All of a sudden, instead of no-show rates being at the 7% rate, all of a sudden they saw success rates at 70%, where ladies were going to the physicians of their choice, doctors of their choice, and saving reserves to carry them month to month to month, saving millions of dollars and getting care for their children. That's a success story. My question to the CMS director at the time was, why aren't you expanding this to empower people to be part of the solution? Oh, it's just a pilot program. We just wanted to see what it would do. So we got to give people the mechanism in which to be empowered to be the successor of their health care. How you want to do health care may be different than I want to do health care. I should have the power to dictate that, whether it's being an HSA being reformed or having new innovative models by the insurance companies competing and doctors reinvigorating new ideas. I mean, for example, look at the Rust Belt. Now we have family physicians that are finding out they can make money by offering to their clientele $50 a month for an adult, unlimited visits per month, and a child $10 per month, unlimited visits per month. They're making money. And now they're expanding the cause to include specialists in those aspects. Yes, they have the religious exemption to the Obamacare, the Medishare aspects. Now we have 5 years of application that is good, sound financial success. Now what we're seeing is that 90% of those on a Medishare pay less than half of what Obamacare rates are, And 60% of those individuals pay less than $500 a month versus the ACA. Amazing. What it shows you is the entrepreneurial ingenuity that exists in America. That's what our framers saw. They wanted to give patents protection so that we would inspire to do something better and greater each time. And technology is going to be our savior. When you look at the iPhone and its potential applications, particularly in the rural aspects and at home medical, you have AFib. On my insurance plan, I give you a $50 reimbursement every month as long as you get the app on your phone and check in with your doctor every day. Yeah. Skin diagnosis. You take pictures of the different skin parchments on your body. You send it in. You'll have possibly intelligent robotics reviewing it faster and more accurate than even
telemedicine is on the way. There's no question about it. I mean, you can walk in.
And this is the way that it's going to come is through the incentivization through the insurance companies and through the technology the docs provide their patients.
Well, Congressman, I'm calling you doctor. You are. Congressman, let me ask you something. Do you feel that Congress is broken?
It is. It's very broken. It should have been about, I've always followed a good friend of mine always taught me, good process builds good policy, builds good politics. And, I've been, a rebel rouser in regards to the speakership. Mm-hmm. Our speakers got it wrong. They've consolidated all the power into the speaker instead of empowering all those around. The power of the speaker is that they work on our behalf and we work on your behalf. And so what it should be is empowering the best of the best that take a lead role on an issue. So if there's somebody that is very good in healthcare, take the role and listen. Get the people around you, start listening, bouncing off ideas.
Well, you have a doctor caucus, don't you? You have a doctor
We do.
And you're a member of that.
I am.
What have they come forward with?
Well, we did. We had a number of ideas, but when the replacement, the repeal and replacement came, we didn't see a lot of that, Ed. That came from Paul Ryan. Mm-hmm. And that's what was shocking. We had made a promise to the American people that we were going to lower your premiums, give you more choice, and cover pre-existing conditions. And that plan didn't. It actually raised premiums by 20%, gave you less choice, and didn't cover pre-existing conditions. And it was the Freedom Caucus who held out that said, listen, we're lying to the American public. We're not going to do this. Therefore, what we've got to do is we've got to come back around. Was it the perfect model? No. But what it did do is it lowered premiums, gave you more choice, and it covered pre-existing conditions.
Are there any
so it was a start.
Are there any committees now working on a single plan? In other words, consolidating all the ideas and bringing them forth?
The only thing I'm aware of, Ed, is in the Senate, the Dr. Bill Cassidy is coming back out with a modified Graham-Cassidy bill that they've been working out to disclose. The only problem that I have there is, once again, remember, we didn't get here overnight. This was a slow matriculation of change and regulatory problems. So we're going to have to move our way back. And I don't think we know what's possible because we haven't broken down all the interested players to the lowest common denominator. We haven't lowered the hospitals, we haven't lowered the pharmaceuticals, nor the insurance industry. And that's what's key about McCarran-Ferguson is that when you make them compete, you're going to save on hospital expenses, better care from your doctor, better payment for your doctors because of the panels, and cheaper pharmaceuticals because they're going to have to compete against each other so that they get your business. Imagine that, taking the government out of the equation and putting you, the consumer, incentivizing association healthcare plans. Who cares who provides that as long as it's being provided?
Sure,
we're going to work our way back.
There's some very rich organizations out there that can put plans together very easily.
Oh, absolutely, and that's look back at what dentistry did in when dental insurance came about. We said we could do it better. That's why the Deltas came around. They revolutionized it. Then what they did is they got smart and figured out to take us all off the boards. Okay, then they lassoed us all over again. But it was that entrepreneurial aspect of the way the deltas were formed to say, listen, we can provide it cheaper. We can make it better. We can cover more procedures, more innovative costs. So instead of, if you didn't want a root canal or a crown, we're now going to talk about implants and look at the long term instead of the short term.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But that goes all hand in hand with the number of dentists out there. For years, we've been kind of stagnant in the number of dentists that have been in practice, and there's so many of us now that are getting older and are going to be retiring, and not as many young dentists coming in because of the cost of a dental education. To become a pediatric dentist now, you're looking at somewhere between $350 and I've heard as much as $1 million in student loans just to become a pediatric dentist. That there's going to be less and less of them as time goes on.
Absolutely. This is something, Ed, that we're all confronting, is this escalating debt, and how do we look for it? Particularly when you're looking at lower reimbursement rates for procedures. That's critical. How do you pay it back? And how do you get the very best of the very best? This is not unique to just dentistry. This is part of the problem with medicine and other professions. So we've got to start looking at, what is the curriculum? Is there a way that we streamline the process? How do we make the administrations for these schools accountable? How do we take that education and spin it in a way that can be either tax deductible, that is lower rates in a competitive market? How do we get to communities that need dentists to invest, like the rural communities, like Wyoming and Idaho and Montana? There's creative aspects out there to challenge.
You're going to get me going here in a minute, because I served for about 10 years on a community college board, and for every year that I was on that community college board, the cost of education went up and up and up, and there was nothing you could do about it. Everybody wanted more money, from the janitors to the tenured professors. And boy, they were really ready to go into a big fight and not come to work if you didn't pay them. So, I'm sure that happens in dentistry and in medicine as well.
It is, but one of the things, we have to have that conversation. That's why transparency in regards to degrees. And one of the big ideas up here is that if you're taking federal money, if you're going to get a degree in, let's say, underwater basket weaving, what's my chance to get a job? What's it going to pay? And how many jobs are out there? Number two is then we got to level the playing field, Ed. There's programs that have been conditioned by the bureaucracy that don't have the American worker in mind. I'll give you one. There's this program that actually incentivizes big tech companies to hire foreign workers over American workers. And guess what? They get a 15.5% break to do so.
Wow.
I wonder what that 15.5% break is. Oh, it's their FICA. It's their withholding for Social Security and Medicare. Oh, this is a double whammy. So these people will work, they'll be eligible for Medicare and Social Security, and they didn't put anything in. Yeah. And this has no jurisdiction. Congress did not pass this. This was done by the bureaucracy. And right now, 50% of our STEM-educated graduates, 50% of our STEM-educated graduates can't find a job because of this program.
But we seem to be bringing those are the only ones that are being let in through the immigration system.
Well, there's flaws in that immigration system, but that doesn't mean it's right. What we have to do is you're at this crossroads. Are you going to provide health care for the world? Or are you going to empower people to provide health care to their own people? What we're doing right now is we're stealing the best from other foreign countries. That's what we're doing right now.
Yes.
You look at the foreign-trained physicians and dentists going into the country. We're stealing the very best from these other countries. That's not the best way to do it. We ought to be empowering them to provide those care to their people.
And as I just said, it's costing so much to get those kinds of educations that that's exactly what we'll be doing, bringing in more people from other countries because we don't have enough educated people here in the United States. But you did do something. I'm going to give you kudos from Dr. Heber Simmons, who is the liaison of the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. He told me to say hello to you. And number one, he said, you are one of the best people out there that it takes care of dentistry and helps dentistry. You did through Title VII, you co-sponsored a bill of the House Bill 996, which is called the Faculty Loan Repayment Plan. And over the years that this thing has been going on, pediatric dentists get about $134 million in faculty reimbursements. And that's the way it works is, and just for our listeners, the way it works is if you're a student with a student loan, if you go in and teach in a university, they will forgive a portion of your student loan, and that money comes from that Title VII House bill. So thank you so much. He thanks you very much, and please continue it.
Well, I tell you what, advocates like Heber Simmons, that's what people need to learn to understand, is that you can teach a member of Congress a new trick. You can teach them what works. And Heber is the epitome of actually doing that. You know, he's constant. He tells you fairly what the pros and cons of it are, and he's always proud of the successes. That's what's great about advocacy. We want to show members of Congress why money is spent well and where its abuse isn't tolerated. This is one of those programs that keeps on giving. The same thing happens with Indian healthcare loans. You know, if you want to see the world and you want to help out the indigent, boy, there's some great opportunities within Indian healthcare. Then there's the military options. There's a lot of kids now going on the military options. You know, there's places like Wyoming that has a hard time keeping some of their professionals. They have a super fund that they actually funds medical doctors and dentists to go to the schools. You got to get in, but then they help pay your way. There's some really creative ways that we can look, and I'm not one that knows all those opportunities, but we got to get people back to the table. The other thing is that we also got to stop the process of utilizing the programs like medicine and dentistry as their cash cows to pay for other programs that don't bring any money in whatsoever.
Oh, yeah. There are some universities that the majority of the students that are going to that university are foreign trained, and because they pay full tuition.
Yep.
And that takes a good chunk away from the American guy who really wants to be a physician or a dentist.
Yep. I think, once again, see, here's the opportunity. We just had a discussion in regards to all these possibilities that are existing. Think of what else can be existing out there. You know, for example, there could be rural America. They both need a physician and a dentist. Well, why couldn't you just share space like they did in the 60s? Yeah. You know, I had a building that had exactly that, where the overhead expense was cut in half. It works. You know, this isn't something new. And dentistry's always been that bright, innovative light. They came up with new ideas, anesthesia. I mean, just everything about dentistry has been revolutionary. The new ceramics, the adhesives. I mean,
let's talk a little bit about those new things. I remember standing in the audience of the American Academy, the American Orthodontic Society meeting when you were speaking, and I asked you about these new innovative ways of straightening teeth that don't require a dentist to authorize or check. And you gave a very good answer, but then I'll tell you something that I found out this week. So go ahead and give me the scenario that you proposed as a way. I asked you if federal government is going to protect the American people from these kinds of innovations that don't allow the dentist to participate.
Well, so what the federal government has done is that they delegate the oversight of health workers to the state, and that's key. The second part to the story is insurance is also a state's right, not a federal right, a state's right, where you get more control over it. But you also have to if you're going to do the process of a dentist, of a professional, you have to be held to the same liability as that dentist or that professional.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have to have the checks and balances. I'll give you the example. In Arizona, we have a very litigious board. You can file a complaint against anybody, even if you don't want to pay your bill. But one of the things that is required is that if you are impersonating somebody like a dentist and you're proposing to do a treatment, it better be to the standards that dentistry provides.
Absolutely. The boards of dentistry, I happen to have served on the board of dentistry of the state of Florida, and that's exactly what our oath was, to protect the people of the state. Interesting, since you gave us that key speech in Washington, California has just passed a rule or a law that requires that before any orthodontics is done by a non-associated dentist performing it, such as the Align products, that they have to have had x-rays reviewed and be authorized by a specific dentist whose name has to appear, who takes responsibility for the case. So what you said at that meeting, it was absolutely true, and it only took 3 weeks later, and the California proposed this rule and adopted it. So now, at least in one state, you can't get away with doing this kind of orthodontics.
Well, you're going to see the same kind of push, because you see this corporate dentistry aspect that all of a sudden you have a bunch of dentists working underneath you, and then you couldn't have access to the charts because you didn't own the charts.
Exactly.
Now in Arizona and most across the country, if you're in one of those programs, you're entitled, you're forced to be able to have access to that record to defend yourself and to look at the treatment. Remember, that patient owns that chart just like like they do. So there's the opportunity for checks and balances is there, and it's closest to the people. So you'll see more and more of that, Ed, and that accountability.
Good deal. Well, I'd like to just thank you so much for being on Orthodontic Smiles podcast. You're so knowledgeable about so many things, and the very fact that you're a dentist, you're really more knowledgeable about from anyone out there about the things that concern us as practitioners. So I'd like to thank you so much for being on our show, and hope maybe in the future we can get you back on when things change. And I hope that in the future Congress fixes itself and it's not broken.
Well, that's where I talk to you as a citizen, saying, listen, demand it.
Yes.
You are the government, and you should demand getting this straightened out. It shouldn't be about people. It should be about customer service to the people. And I think that's where dentistry gets it right.
Well, Arizona is very lucky to have you as their congressman, and we're very lucky to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Ed. Sure appreciate all the listeners. And if you got ideas, please reach out to us, because who knows, you may just crack the code.
Thanks a lot. I'd love to think I could. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You betcha. Bye-bye.
What an honor it was to be able to interview Congressman Paul Gosar. I have to thank his staff for helping us coordinate everything that was necessary. It was a very busy week in Washington when we did this interview, and he was very gracious in helping us. Let's break 1 second for a word from one of our sponsors.
Hi, my name's Dr. Brad Williams, and I've practiced orthodontics for over 35 years, and over those years, I've had some fantastic teachers like Dr. Bill Wyatt, Dr. Bob Garrity, Dr. Dave Jackson, and many, many more. And I'm honored now to be teaching orthodontics to a whole new generation of general and pediatric dentists. I want to personally invite you to enroll in one of my basic or intermediate hands-on courses through the American Orthodontic Society. We are committed to provide your entire staff the support and training you need to launch orthodontics in your pediatric or general dental practice. And to make the hands-on experience in my classes the best possible, I've partnered with an outstanding and very ethical company called OrthoArch to provide all the orthodontic supplies my students need. When my students start treating patients in their offices, they too will benefit, as I have, in partnering with OrthoArch for all their orthodontic supply needs. You can contact OrthoArch at www.orthoarch.com. See you in class.
I was honored this year to be able to present the Richard Moore Award. It's the most prestigious award the American Orthodontic Society can bestow. This award is rarely presented by the board of the American Orthodontic Society, but when presented, it is with their unanimous consent. It has been presented to only a few individuals who have given of themselves for years to do this organization the things that they love. When I was a lowly new member of the American Orthodontic Society, I often wondered how certain individuals excelled not only in learning orthodontics, how did they walk the intricate path to distinction? Some were instructors, others were authors, some were administrators and board members and presidents. Some were innovators, but most were doers. And for sure, they were givers of their time and talents. All the recipients of the Richard Moore Lifetime Achievement Award were all those things and much more. Their talents extended not only to their organization, but extended to their professional and personal lives. So as I announce the name of the Richard Moore recipient this year, we truly understand the significance of this year's recipient. The AOS is honored to present its most treasured award to my friend and colleague of 30 years, Dr. James Edward McElwain. He was born James Edward McElwain Jr. in Miami in 1940. His father attended Emory University, and his mother was a beauty queen and attended Florida Southern University. Jimmy was the oldest of 3 sons and worked in his spare time at the family bookstore. The McElwain family was active in the Methodist Church and the community. Jimmy followed his brothers and joined the Boy Scouts of America. In high school, he played just about every sport and was loved by his coaches for his leadership skills. Not to mention he was a good athletic participant. Oh, and by the way, did I mention that he earned his Eagle Scout Award? After graduation, he went on to Emory University and joined Sigma Chi fraternity. At a joint social with Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority, he met what was to be the love of his life, Patricia Barsons. They got engaged and were married right before Jim started dental school in 1961. He soon realized that he was a natural with children and chose the specialty of pediatric dentistry. It was a great decision. By the time Jim finished his pediatric dentistry residency, they were a family of 4. When you add Leanne, who now is a pediatric dentist, and Chip. Right after graduation, Jim joined the U.S. Air Force, and now Captain James McElwain family were sent to the Panama Canal Zone at Howard Air Force Base for the next 4 years. Jim treated only children at the dental clinic on base and loved every minute of it. His tour also included treating patients in other Central American countries, including Ecuador, Nicaragua, and Bolivia. 4 Panamanian Christmases later, it was time to come stateside. And that took the now Major James McElwain's family to Georgia, Moody Air Force Base. It was at Moody Air Force Base that Jim did the clinical trials and research for sealants. Yes, he's one of the reasons why we use sealants every day in our practice. In 1978, that now Lieutenant Colonel James McElwain decided to go into the Air Force Reserves. And this is when I met Jim, Pat, Leanne, and Chip. That was the year he opened his pediatric practice in Tampa, Florida, and we have been friends ever since. His family and practice prospered, and in 1983, With the grace of God, Pat made the decision to follow her calling to be a deacon in the Episcopal Church. This soon after led them both to use their talents to establish a mission in the Dominican Republic. They called it Jesse's Children. Over the years, they made countless trips, taking medical teams, youth groups. They treated children and adults, built homes and playgrounds. They spread their love to those who needed it most. He worked his practice, managed the logistics of the mission, and still found time to be president of the Florida Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, the Southeastern Society of Pediatric Dentistry, the American Orthodontic Society. He founded the Visions Study Club and the Florida Study Club for Growth and Development. Jim became a member of the AOS in 1983 and in 1989 became a diplomat. In 1996, he served on the AOS board and in 2002 was elected president. He was presidentially appointed to the board in 2014 until 2015. He has twice been president of the AOS Foundation and has served on the board of examiners. He was instrumental in establishing the Garrity Scholarship Foundation, which to date has awarded over 18 years $50,000 to deserving students. Jim, we should have given you this award many years ago. We honor you with this award with one regret. Your life's partner, Pat, passed away last year, but I'm sure she's relishing the fact that you're being honored by the American Orthodontic Society. And she would love to know that you've gotten this award. So congratulations, my good friend, Dr. Jim McElwain. This is your host, Dr. Ed Gonzalez. I want to thank you for listening to Orthodontic Smiles today. If you enjoyed our broadcast, please click the subscribe button. We'll be in touch with you in the future about our further broadcasts. Thanks for listening.